What's going on, Safehouse
What's up,
family?
Safehouse? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Or
Happy New Year.
I was
Oh,
gonna sing "For All Acquaintance We Forgot." Do you know
yeah.
that? No, you don't
I
know
don't, yeah, that's why I was just making up my own, that's what we do as
Yeah,
Black
Happy
folks.
New Year song.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
then it
we stop
is.
making up songs, making up beats. That's what- But I like what you said. It's like old acquaintance be forgot.
Yeah, never brought to
Oh,
mind.
wow. That's kind of like what we're talking about today,
Should
huh?
all acquaintance
Wow.
be forgot in the days of all lang syne,
Yeah,
right?
we
That's
bring that back up again. Yeah, yeah.
old Scottish song.
Okay.
Yeah,
Of course he knows the history of it.
of course.
Of
I'm
course he
such a nerd.
does.
I'm a nerd. I can't help it.
Yeah,
But our holidays were good. We had
they
a
were.
family karaoke night
Yes.
that turned out to be pretty epic. I
I still
didn't.
got songs in my heart. I got a
Yeah,
song in my heart.
I think everybody is rehearsing or
Oh, yeah,
practicing
yeah.
their songs for
You
the
know
next
what not
time.
to sing?
Yeah, because
With Whitney Houston.
yeah,
Do not sing
yeah.
Whitney
Whitney,
Houston when you're doing karaoke.
yeah. You get reminded that Whitney had skills. I mean,
Right,
had
which I
serious.
don't.
you
I
try
don't.
you try to sing her songs.
Right,
We
yeah. That's what happened. Thank God Andre didn't record that part. I was like, "Cut the tape, cut the tape." Yeah, it didn't turn out well.
Everyone, we want you to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so that you will know about content as we publish it. And today, for our first episode of 2025, the year of our Lord 2025, what are we talking about?
We're talking about forgiving and forgetting, and it just seemed like an appropriate topic because it's like, once the year is over, you always, as you're reflecting,
Hmm.
you're like, okay, what should I forget? Especially if you had a bad year, you're like, man, I don't want to repeat that. So there's just some stuff you just want to forget.
Yeah, forgiving and forgetting. Is that even really a thing? I know we talk about
Yeah.
forgiving and forgetting, and I know us Bible thumpers, we always, and I've heard preachers preach this. It's like you're thrown into the sea of forgetfulness, right? And I just never
You couldn't
found
find that scripture?
that
Oh,
scripture.
okay.
It's like, what is the sea of forgetfulness? Is it like in the Middle East? Is it,
Right, yeah, I don't yeah,
where is that at?
it's definitely
No.
yeah, I couldn't find that one either.
No,
The
no,
Sea of
no,
Galilee, I don't
no,
know,
no, no,
yeah.
no, no,
Yeah, the
no.
Red Sea, the Dead Sea, I mean,
What I believe, and hey, you Bible thumpers out there, correct me and let me know. I believe it comes from Micah, right? That scripture in Micah
I think
where
it's verse 7,
7 and 19,
8 yeah,
7, 7,
19, I
19.
think,
Okay,
yeah.
and I think it references that God will forgive us and cast our transgressions into the sea.
Right,
Right. And the whole idea of transgressions in the sea is that it's kind of like a rock. You throw a rock into the sea, it's, at that time there was no way to retrieve it, right?
right,
And it's like, and it's very hard to retrieve. So
right.
that's how far our transgressions are away
But I
when God
like that
casts them
because it's not
in.
like the rock is forgotten, but I like that you said it's hard to retrieve.
Yeah.
So, like, even in our ability to forget, such should some memories be hard to retrieve,
Hmm. Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah. We want to get to a place where there's certain things about people that have offended us
Yeah.
that shouldn't be top of mind,
Yeah,
so to speak,
absolutely.
right? It
Yeah.
shouldn't be
We
that.
should be able to cast those down
Yeah, yeah,
further, where it's not like, oh, as soon as we think of this person, we automatically
yeah.
think the negative.
But then, the conflict there, and I always like tension and
Of course he
conflict.
does.
So do we forget in cases of a person overcoming and having a testimony, right? I don't necessarily want to forget, hey, if you
Right,
were a low down, dirty dog,
right.
and now you
Paul,
are right.
Saul,
Well, now,
yeah.
yeah, now
Just saying,
you
yeah.
the goody good, right? You're the
Right.
saintly saint,
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
and so part of your testimony is how I was this and now I am that.
Mhm.
Um, we don't necessarily forget that person was that, but
Right.
I think there's a difference between remembering what they were and what they overcame to become
Yeah, that's true.
versus looking at them and expecting the worst out of them because of their old behavior,
Right.
right?
But I think what's hard in relationships, in marriage or any kind of relationship is, like you said, bridging the gap between what you just said.
Hmm.
Because there's a process of this person who was the low down scoundrel
Mhm.
who is now not the low down scoundrel. Okay. And if I stayed with you through that process, then I'm rejoicing during your testimony. What tends to happen, I'm not saying it happens all the time because
Mhm.
some people do stick it out.
Yep.
But the hard part is staying with the person in their scoundrel stage.
Scoundrel, rapscallion,
Yes.
low
Yes.
down,
Right. That's the hard part.
scallywag.
You know, because they're still a scoundrel.
They're still a
You know,
scoundrel,
they
right?
haven't gotten rid of all their scoundrel ways.
Right,
You
right.
know, and so you're watching this person develop into this new person, but you still with them while you're still frustrated
Yeah.
with their ways.
They have scoundrel
Right,
tendencies
they
that they're
do.
working out of. They have
Absolutely.
scoundrel mindset.
They do.
You know,
Yeah.
they if they're a crook, they think like a crook. They always,
Right.
but they're trying to work out of those things. So what does forgiveness look like, even though you know that they're still prone to those things that they're working through? Not as prone as they were before,
Right.
but as they're less prone,
Right.
how much more patient do you have to be, right?
Yeah.
Because some of that behavior is still going to show up. So,
And I think that's important, like you said, even as we're starting out the new year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I said, at some point we all go through this process
Yeah.
of this dealing with somebody in our lives.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes it's what our kids,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
kids can be scoundrels, and you're like, oh my God, are they ever going to change? And we go to the church and want them to pray them back into righteousness and all this
Mhm.
other kind of stuff. But once again, we still got to wait for them to get there.
But what's funny though is it's I'm not saying that this doesn't exist, but it's a very rare exception where someone just puts their kids completely out there, right? It's
That's
like what
true.
happens is no matter what they do, they find space in their heart for love, right? Even
Right.
though they may do scandalous things, even though they may be deceptive, even though they may be manipulative, for some reason, when it comes to kids,
Right.
we're able to make that exception, right?
But the question is, how do we make that exception with our spouses
With our
or our forever
spouses, our
person?
forever person,
Yeah,
even just
that's-
relationship, the people
yeah,
in our lives. How
that's
do we
true.
do that? So
Yeah.
here's what I want us to do. And I've got to introduce some other data.
Of course he does.
So I have a video that I'd like us to react to from Bishop Sheard. He's being interviewed on a podcast by his daughter, Kierra Sheard,
Mhm.
right? And they're talking about this topic of forgiveness, right?
Okay.
And so I'm going to play it, we're going to play and stop and comment on it and just kind of put this in the context of, because I think he has a really interesting perspective on it,
Mhm.
especially knowing that he's a a seasoned, high-ranking bishop in the Church of God, right?
Okay.
And so let's go ahead and listen to this.
Okay.
But I'm set free. I have moved past unforgiveness. I'm doing better, making
Sure.
better choices. Just because I forgive, does that mean that I have to go back to it? Do things go back the same way they were?
See, now this is debatable,
Okay.
okay? Because my interpretation of forgiveness may be different. Now, I think I'm right,
Okay.
but I'm not faulting people who may disagree with me,
Okay.
okay? Watch this, Kierra.
Okay.
So you dogged me out. Me and you were friends. You dogged me out. You hurt me. And and our relationship has gotten real bad.
Mm-hmm.
So then you see I'm hurt and you come to me and you say, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? And I say, sure. So you're saying I'm sorry so we can go back to where we were before you did diabolical act
Mm-hmm.
that hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
My take is when you ask me to forgive you, it means let's wipe the slate clean.
Mm.
Okay.
So I can't necessarily go back to when we were friends. I got to wipe the slate clean. Wiping the slate clean means me and you may not ever be friends again. And it cannot be because of what you've done, because I wiped the slate clean. But forgiveness is, I have got to learn you over again because you're not the person
Mm-hmm.
that I thought you were.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Wow, right?
Yeah.
So this is wild, right? Because he's just said, "Look, I can forgive you. I can wipe the slate clean, but now I no longer know you. You're not the person I thought you were, right?
Hmm.
So now we have to rebuild our relationship from scratch, right? And how extreme does that get, right? Is it like your
Yeah.
person off the street? I have some challenges with it. I understand the context of what he's saying, but what are your thoughts?
It's extreme,
Yeah.
obviously it's very extreme. I mean, I don't know. I guess if I'm thinking about it in terms of marriage, um, it would almost be hard to do something like that, to like wipe the slate. I mean, we've been together for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and like you said, none of us are immune to an attack of the enemy coming in and making crazy stuff happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, whether we're angry or whatever we say things, a whole bunch of things could happen.
Right.
And so now are you saying that, okay, for the 30 years I've been sweet as pie, your biggest supporter or whatever, and then I lose my mind for like 3 months. Now you like, oh, I never knew you.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know how, to do that part. I mean, like,
Yeah,
man,
that's extreme to me,
yeah,
right? Right.
that's kind of extreme.
And once again, I think when we look at these things, we really have to parse them out in terms of the relationship and the proximity, right?
Yeah,
Because once again, let's juxtapose that against one flesh, right?
yeah,
And so now there's one part of the Bible that says if your eye offends you, pluck it out, right?
right,
But then if we're one flesh, I still have to somehow figure out how to live with this
right,
part of my flesh that may have offended me at the
right. I was
time,
gonna say, yeah, we both gonna be walking around with one eye.
Right, right. It's like what's the phrase? An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth
Right,
walks around. We're all
right. We're gonna be looking real crazy.
blind and toothless.
I'm like, what happened to Alex? We've been through some stuff.
We tapping
But
canes, walking around.
but we good though. We
Right,
still together
still
and we love
together.
each other.
Right. We ain't got no eyes, no
Right,
teeth.
right.
But no, it is, and so here's where I understand, right? Because I think and I'm not going to put words in the bishop's mouth, right? Because
Mhm.
he's a bishop in his own right, but I think there is a restorative component to
Yes.
forgiveness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? That when
Absolutely.
you forgive somebody, we want to have this fairy tale situation that forgiveness is this instantaneous, magical, suddenly, quickly, suddenly. We like that in the church, right?
We do.
And that suddenly, everything that hurt me, offended me, caused all these things is now gone away. Well, no, it's just like a wound, right? A wound doesn't heal
Right.
immediately. A wound heals over time,
Mhm.
right? And that place is damaged and requires care and protection and all of that while it's healing, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think we can view physical hurts the same way. Now, on that same token, I would hope that in a relationship, and we talked about this in the partisanship episode,
Yeah, we
right?
did. Yeah.
That if I've been faithful as a friend, as a spouse, as a person, as a confidant in your life for 30 years,
Mhm.
and then I have something that offends you once, does that one offense negate all of the time that I've been true?
Right.
And I guess maybe it's based on the nature of what it is, right? But
Right.
but I think generally, do we use that as an excuse to quote unquote cancel somebody?
I think our society does that.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you said, we live in a cancel society where, like you said, it's the one thing you did. Now, once again, I think that's different from repetitive
yeah,
behavior,
yeah.
because that can be the sticking point in a place of forgiveness. So I like that you use the analogy of a wound.
Yeah.
And so when you have a wound, like you said, you got to, there's self-care that you got to do with the wound. And so if you're constantly picking at it
Hmm.
and, taking the Band-Aid off and not caring for it or
Hmm.
whatever, then it never really fully heals.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I think it's like that sometimes in relationships. Like I said, when the person is continually doing the same thing.
it's like picking at a wound.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
And once again, I still think every situation is different. Like you could have somebody who is, one of the things I probably remember like years ago, like I said, I'd gone to a marriage conference. I still love marriage conferences. But it was this young lady, she was giving a testimony
Mm-hmm.
about her husband. And so her husband had cheated on her. He was doing drugs. He was doing all kinds of notorious stuff. He was gambling. He was doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were actually going to get a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like I said, he had another woman. He had everything. And so she was like going through the process of like moving on with her life.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, God, he don't want to be with me. I can't change him. I can't do any of those things. So something happened where the husband had to wind up coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he came knocking on the door, the first question that she had to ask herself was, do I let him come back in?
Mm.
Hmm.
And what did she decide?
She let him come back in. Not in the bedroom.
Okay, right. But they cohabitated.
They cohabitated. So he was downstairs and she was upstairs. But what she saw in that process, and it took a while. It took like over a year. What she saw in the process was him changing.
A transformation. Okay.
She saw this transformation. And so she was standing in front of us like 20 years in after all of that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, because she was really giving us a lesson in forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because he had done some terrible stuff.
Yeah.
Some stuff that would seem unforgivable,
Yeah, but what's funny is what you just said is kind of the embodiment of what Bishop Sheard just said, right? Because even though they cohabitated, their relationship was not, they didn't have a married, she didn't just forgive and they went right back to being a married couple. It was
absolutely.
like, she basically, I got to learn you all over again.
Absolutely.
Right? And then through time, he had to demonstrate change in his behavior. And I'm sure he had to humble himself. And let's be real, she probably had to humble herself, right? Because she had the moral high ground. Yeah. Right?
And what she said was she took time to humble herself while he was away.
Mm-hmm.
So she was getting herself together spiritually. And so she said that by the time he came knocking on the door, her heart
was ready to forgive.
Yeah, if he had did it a year before, she would have been like, no.
So that's a question for the audience. It's like, when do you realize that even though you have the moral high ground, that it may be time for you to humble yourself so that you're even ready to forgive, right? Because it's not about the person actually doing everything right in order to earn forgiveness.
Right.
It's about your heart posture and your preparedness to forgive. You know what I mean? And that requires humility because once again, how many of us are willing to relinquish the moral high ground when we're right?
Oh, yeah.
Not
yes. Initially, no. I'll say that. Initially, no.
We're right. We got the moral high ground. Right. You did me wrong.
Exactly.
I got every right to be looking down.
And I'm going to make you pay for it.
And I'm going to make you pay for it, right? Yeah. But then it requires, relinquishing the moral high ground and saying, wait a minute, because that goes back to purpose. Yeah. Right? Is the purpose of your union bigger than your moral high ground?
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the scripture, I want to say it's in Philippians, where Paul is saying, I press toward the mark.
Yeah.
Because once again, he's like, I'm forgetting those things in the past.
Yeah.
And he's saying, because once again, he's remembering the goal. What's the goal?
Yeah.
The goal is for me to do what Christ is asking me to do. And so, like you said, so in marriage or when you're with your forever person, it's, you always have to have the goal in mind.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you lose sight of the goal, then all cards are off the table.
Yeah, because it's more about winning the battle than the war. Yeah. Right? It's more about the situation at the time.
Yeah.
And seeking restitution. Because let's be real, a lot of us when we're hurt, we want restitution.
Yeah.
It's not about forgiveness. We want some sort of pay.
Yeah. And even to your point, like you said, how you can kind of see what he's saying, it's like it also takes, if I'm the one who had all the diabolical stuff done to me, then I have to be willing now to invest in learning you again.
Yeah.
I have to believe enough in the goal of why we got together that now I'm willing to see you from a different perspective. Like you said, I'm willing to learn you all over again. Because that's a risk, like any investment.
Yeah.
It's a risk.
Well, once again, what's the phrase? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on
Yeah,
me.
shame on me.
Right.
Right.
George said, can't fool me again. He couldn't remember. Fool me, can't fool me again. Right.
Right.
But no, we don't want to be a fool again.
Right, exactly.
Right?
We don't.
Fooled again.
Right.
No, I'm sorry. You see,
See, look at him. He's singing too. Yeah.
We don't want to be fooled again.
That is true. Yeah,
right?
we don't. Yeah.
We feel,
that's real talk.
Yeah, we feel foolish, right?
Yeah, we
when
do.
we fall for banana in the tailpipe.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah.
And so you want to try to avoid that, protect that, shields up. You have your detectors on, and all those things. And so that causes us, we got to be intellectually honest, right?
Yeah. That is true.
Because I think that's what real forgiveness looks like. I may not necessarily be over the pain or over the hurt of the offense, but the forgiveness is I'm willing to invest in getting us back there by being open to learning you all over again.
Yeah. And then it's kind of like what we had said at the beginning about we were talking about the whole sea of forgetfulness and stuff like that. It's like because now I'm learning you all over again.
Yeah.
It's not that I like totally forget everything that happened in the past, but those aren't the memories that are now in the forefront of my mind. So it becomes a little bit harder for me to retrieve those other memories.
They're also not rationales that I use to prevent learning you, right?
Exactly.
Because we can
use it as a weapon.
You can use it as a weapon, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
you know what, you never do so. We start using absolutes. You never so and so. You always so and so. And so I'm just not going to do that. Right?
You're never going to change.
You're never going to change. Now, here's where I think it's always situational, and I hate to make things complicated because
you're right.
This is one of these things that's so some people, some of us are dealing with people that have toxic personalities. And I'm talking about from a psychological standpoint,
yes.
right? In the world of psychology, you have these behaviors called dark triad behaviors, right? One of which is Machiavellianism, right? People that are master manipulators, right? You have narcissists, right? Who also manipulate, but they basically have a personality where they overemphasize themselves. Not necessarily because they love themselves a lot. They have that behavior, but it's really because they hate themselves,
Yeah.
right? And then you have sort of psychopathic behavior, people that basically do things and they don't necessarily have empathy on how those things hurt you. You know what I mean? And so when you're looking at those behaviors, here's where we have to be careful because especially narcissistic personalities, they use this as a tool, right? So for instance, right, you're an emotional person.
Yes,
right?
I am.
You're very emotional.
Person. Yes.
And because you're an emotional person, what happens is you fight when you're hurt, you fight showing that you're hurt. You try to show that you're strong. You don't, I remember times you've like wanted to cry and you like run away or you like something or whatever, right? Or you wait till I'm asleep or whatever and do your crying because you don't want me to see you cry.
Right. And plus tears mean nothing to him.
Well,
they probably do now,
they
but
do
back
not.
in the day,
I'm not a robot.
he was like,
I'm not a robot.
Sucker, go, whatever. Sorry. Okay, go ahead with your story.
The streets made me a monster,
They did.
baby.
I know. Like I said, but we still here.
But no. So to a person that has narcissistic tendencies, right? What they will do is they'll say this person will basically, if they see me emotionally act out because they don't do it, I know this will move them, right? Because they're looking at me like, man, if they're acting out that emotionally, they must be sincere. But me as a narcissist, it's like, no, I'm not sincere. I just know that you're triggered by emotional outbursts and emotional acting out. And if I'm holding onto your knee crying, say, I love you. I don't, I didn't know what I did.
Yeah, I'm gonna fall for that.
Yeah. And you're going to fall for it, right? But as the manipulator, right, I just know that that's the key to getting what I want from you.
Right.
Right. And so this is where we have to be very, very mindful and watchful and prayerful about the people in our lives that are dealing with these sort of mental, psychological personality issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's real.
And let's be real. The church, the religion, the Christian community is not immune from narcissists, psychopaths,
That is true.
and Machiavellians.
Yeah.
They're not.
That is true.
You know, as a matter of fact, you have a lot of them that are in there because they have those tendencies,
Yeah,
right? They
that
are
is true.
master manipulators.
Yeah.
They're able to get something out of you,
Mhm.
right? And unfortunately, some of these personality disorders don't have any remorse.
Right.
I've used you. I've gotten everything I've needed. That's the game. And
Mhm.
I won and you lost.
Right.
Right. And so all of that psychobabble is to kind of say there are exceptions to this situation about forgiveness, right? Who are you
Mhm.
dealing with? Are they a master manipulator? All right. Are
Yeah.
they of these dark triad type personalities that know how to manipulate your emotional buttons and
Mhm.
use forgiveness as a weapon to get what they want from
Yeah. That's I don't even have anything to say beyond that because that's I mean, I think where like I said, that's real talk, but then like you said, it's, you know, what do I do with that? Like I said, how do I now make a decision? Like you said,
Yeah.
especially if I know you're my forever person,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, how do I you know, once again, I feel like it's the lady's testimony.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
hmm
they did separate.
Yeah.
You know, they had that they weren't together
Yeah.
for a period of time, you know, but when he came back, you know, because once again, like you said, if you cheating and you doing drugs or whatever, you deceptive, you
Yeah.
know, because she didn't know, you
Yeah.
know, until she found out,
hmm
you know. But like I said, when he came back and he was changed, because when he first came back, he wasn't trying to get back with it. He just really just needed
He
a
just
place
needed a
to
place
we
to
just needed
stay.
a place to
Yeah.
crash.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, "Can I just come and crash until I get myself together?"
Yeah.
And so God really got him together when he
hmm
was there.
Yeah.
But like you said, to your point of, like I said, how do I, you know, as I'm going through this journey of figuring out like how to forgive, how do I forgive the narcissist?
Yeah.
You know, how do I forgive the person with the Machiavellian um, personality if
Yeah.
I know that God has made this person
Yeah.
my forever person? How do I it's hard
It's very
working
hard.
through that process. And I know, like you said, it's the new year, and some of us are working through those processes of,
Yeah.
okay, do I stay with him? Do I stay married?
Do I
You
stay
know,
with her? Right?
what do I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because it's draining.
It is. It's emotionally
Yeah, it's
draining.
emotionally draining.
And it's not just a him, it's a her issue too. You
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
women,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
have
I've
on
seen
both
it.
sides
Yeah.
of the sexual spectrum.
Yeah.
And so, first, what's really amazing about the story you just told is that time to get to know each other again, to sort
Mhm.
of reset it
Mhm.
and let's get to know each other again. I
Yeah.
think that's important,
Yeah.
right? I think sometimes you just got to call it and say, look, we're at a place right now where we can't go back
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
where
Which is
we
what he
were.
said. Like
Yeah,
you said, we can't go
we
back
we
to
can't go
that.
back to that. We got to
Yeah.
rebuild something
Yeah.
over time,
Yeah.
right? I got to get to know you
Yeah.
again, right?
That's true.
Because the person I thought you were, you're not, right?
And he also had to get to know her again
Yeah,
because she was no longer that person that he had married.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because she
She was
obviously,
different.
yeah, she was living for the Lord at the.
Right.
I'm sure she
Right.
wasn't prior.
You know,
and yeah,
yeah,
so
she was just different. I mean, when you go through stuff like that, you're gonna come out different.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, you're no longer the
Yeah.
same person.
So to me, couple things. One, it's very clear this is a professional counseling when it comes
Oh
to
yeah.
couples, and you have a person that may be dealing with those. A professional counselor could help to tease that out. Now they're not
Mhm.
going to sit in a meeting and play court and say, "Ha ha, you're a narcissist and she
Right.
was right," or he. They're not going to do that, right?
Mhm.
But I think as the progress goes along, that person can start to identify other interventions that may be necessary
Yeah.
um, for each individual.
Mhm.
The other thing is, let's be real. We develop a lot of these characteristics as defense mechanisms for life,
We
right? We
do.
don't realize that we've become narcissistic, but there was something in our past that taught us to be narcissistic to preserve ourselves,
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna say
Emotionally,
it's
right?
all about
Right,
self-preservation.
right. To preserve ourselves. We're in an
Yeah.
environment where nobody cares about me, so I'm going to care about me the
Yeah.
most, right?
That is
I'm
true.
in an environment where nobody protects me, so I'm going to protect me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
It's like an overcorrection.
it is. You
Yeah.
overcorrect, given that benefit of the doubt, but you
Yeah.
have to work with a professional to help tease out those things, right?
Mhm.
And tease out, because that's individual healing. That's
Yeah.
not a couple heal. That's not a couple healing thing.
Right. That's true.
You
That
know,
is true. No, that is true.
but I think both parties need to be open to exploring that level of personality
Yeah.
issue, right?
Yeah. I
And
totally
so
agree with
and
that.
so those out there that may be dealing with this situation, it may be time to sit down with your spouse and say, look, if it's you, have enough courage to say, you know what, I may be this guy,
Yeah. No, yeah, that's
I may
true.
be this
Yeah.
girl, and so, if we're gonna make our journey back towards each other, maybe, we go to counseling, but I also need to really explore what it's like to be individually counseled.
Mhm.
And I may even need help and intervention, right?
Mhm.
Because I learned the way to behave. We've worked with a couple. He's like, look, this is what my family did all of
Yeah.
my life. This
That
is
is
what I've
true.
learned.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
only normal I know,
Mhm.
right? No one's taught me this other normal,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't make it insurmountable, but the old phrase, it's not teaching a old dog new tricks that's hard. It's getting the old dog to unlearn all
Right.
the old
Old
tricks.
tricks. Yeah. That's
It's,
true. But that's where the empathy comes in
yeah,
too. Like I said, recognizing that, like you said, that's to me, that's a big part of the forgiveness track
yeah,
of, being empathetic. Like I said, because a lot of times when we're struggling with forgiveness, it is what we remember
yeah.
about what you did, and so now that's the only lens that we see you through, and it's not an empathetic
No,
lens,
no.
and so we literally have to now go back and change that lens and really be like, okay, let me think about this.
Yeah,
So I'll just say this. So like today, like I said, in my therapy session, one of the things that my therapist said to me was, she said, you have to be able to discern in conversations. And she said, and the discerning piece was being able to pull back layers
yeah,
off of people,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
to hear what they're saying, but then to hear what they're
Hear
saying,
what else they're saying,
to
right?
hear what else that
What's
they're
in
saying.
between the lines.
Right.
That's really good. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's that piece,
yeah,
because that's what will bring about the empathy,
yeah.
and that's what will help you to be able to forgive,
Hmm.
because you'll be like, okay, yeah, they did that, but why did they do it?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yep,
know?
yep.
Yeah.
Not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a deep onion. That's got
Yeah.
many layers.
And that was just like 2 minutes of that video that we just kind of talked about. That wasn't
Right.
even the whole
It
video.
wasn't even the whole video. There's
Yeah.
a whole video. Suggest you go over to it. Once again, I'll leave the link in the description if you want to go see that whole video. I'll even leave in the description those terms that I use: the Machiavellian, the narcissist, the psychopath, all those things, and maybe do a little bit of research out there in terms of those topics. No, this is not a tool for you to go to say, hey, I watched the Safehouse video and you a psychopath. No, that's not what we're saying.
No, we're not saying
We're
that.
not saying that, right? But those things help you understand those types of behaviors. And more so, you may look at this and start to see yourself in some of these
That
behaviors.
is true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
I could, like I said, I could see myself in some of those spaces. I don't think I'm that person anymore,
yeah.
like manipulative and,
So,
and
so
that
let
type
me
of
give a
thing.
disclaimer. We all have a little bit.
Right. We all
We
do.
all have a
I
little
like,
bit
yeah, I'm
of
glad you
everything.
said that.
Yeah,
We all have a
we
little
all
bit
got a
of
little
that.
bit,
Yeah.
right? So we all do
Yeah.
a little bit of gaslighting.
Yeah.
We all do a little bit of we all
Yeah.
do a
We all
little bit
do
of
it.
it. It's
Yeah.
just
We
when you
do.
get to the extreme point of
Yeah.
it, right? And you lack empathy and you lack any type of care,
Yeah.
that it starts to cross over into the world of being a psychosis. So
Yeah.
that's something we need to watch for. So
I think
anyway, go ahead.
the goal, like even in having this conversation today about forgiving, forgetting, starting over, the point is that you still want to make sure, if there's a way to still be with your forever person,
Yeah,
and acknowledging that forgiveness is not easy.
yeah,
Forgiveness is a process. It takes time.
yeah,
It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And both parties have to be able to see that.
yeah,
The one who, like you said, the one who's seeking forgiveness and the one who is trying to forgive.
yeah,
And those roads may not always line up evenly,
yeah,
but that's the ultimate goal, even as we start out, in 2025 as couples who are struggling, in these spaces of still trying to figure out, okay, like you said, I'm having a hard time forgiving because I can't forget
Yeah.
what this person did to me, because that's what's in the forefront of my
That's what's
mind,
top of mind.
and so like you said, trying to find a way to bury, like you said, not that you ever forget because they're still there, but to get to a place where, like you said, they're not that retrievable.
Yeah.
And like I said, I call that selective memory. I
Right.
can't even remember what I did yesterday.
Right. Right.
Somebody
Right.
say, I come down the stairs. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even remember
Yeah.
why I came downstairs.
But you also forgive people like at a drop of a hat,
yeah.
right? It's just like, okay, I'm sorry, you ready to go back? Okay, we're friends again.
But
That's
what I
a good
did
quality about you,
realize
actually.
was that what I thought was forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
it really wasn't.
It was conflict avoidance.
Not even that, but one of the things that, like I said, even in studying forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
you know that you haven't forgiven when you still have bitterness,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you still have resentment,
Yeah.
and you're still angry.
Yeah.
And then as I started to look back on some situations where I told people, "Oh yeah, I forgive you, it's okay," but yet I'm still mad.
Mm-hmm.
I still carry some resentment, and I'm still bitter.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Oh, well, no, I really
You really
haven't
haven't forgiven.
forgiven this
Yeah.
person."
Yeah.
And like you said, yeah. So that was a big eye opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also sharing that piece because, a lot of times we say, oh, well, I forgave that person. Yeah, but if you're still angry,
Yeah.
if you're still bitter, if you still have some resentment, then you haven't fully given that because all of that are the roots
Yeah.
of unforgiveness.
You haven't really reset it to the place where I'm willing to learn you over again.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Because
Yeah.
there's a difference between sort of like, hey, I want to forget this and I don't want to have anything else to do with you versus, okay, we're resetting this. I'm still invested, but our relationship is not where I thought it was, but I'm
Yeah.
invested in us trying to get back there.
Yeah.
The only thing I would offer to folks out there, and once again, this is my unprofessional opinion. I'm not a psychologist or a lawyer. This is not medical nor legal advice. Big
Just a
disclaimers there.
lot of
Right.
disclaimers.
Wasn't going to say I'm fast like on the commercials whispering, this is not
Right.
legal advice. Do not follow this stuff. No, but no, not going to do that. What I strongly suggest is that you do not try to self-heal on this, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Because just like a wound,
Mhm.
you don't know how wounded you are sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And that wound unfortunately created ear filters, eye filters, lenses, all of those things by which you take in information.
Mhm.
And I just don't think it's a good idea for you to try to self-heal, go
Yeah.
into a corner, do some sort of separation, do some sort of thing where you figured out how we're going to resolve this. I think if you're really invested in getting some sort of restoration, you got to involve some sort of professional third
Mhm.
party and some sort of spiritual third party
Yeah.
that's going to walk you both through that process.
Mhm.
Right? But I think on your own, especially when there's hurt involved, it's kind of like a wounded person going into the hospital and getting their own sutures trying to sew their
Yeah.
wound back up. You're hurting too much to even sew yourself
That's
back up.
true. Yeah.
You got too much trauma. You can't even see your ability, you can't even see what you're doing wrong to yourself. You may
Mhm.
be hurting yourself more
Yeah.
by trying to self-heal. So
That is
my
true.
only advice here is just don't try to self-remedy.
Mhm.
Seek some sort of professional
Yeah.
help and intervention.
That's as we're making all these New Year's resolutions, for 2025, let's resolve to, to get fully healed in those spaces of unforgiveness,
Yeah.
and like you said, and our ability to remember,
Yeah.
how, it's really like, how are we remembering it?
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's still a part of us.
Yeah.
It's shaped us in some form or fashion. But, like I said, be resolved to really kind of focus on how am I remembering this event, and is it keeping me stuck, unable to move forward, those types of things. So, that to me is like I said, being able to have this conversation at the beginning of the year, because it's going to shape how our 2025 plays out. Yeah.
Well, that's the episode.
Yeah.
You all liked it. Make sure you hit a like on us. Throw a like on there.
Please do.
Share this video with people that you know need it.
We
Subscribe.
need it.
Yeah,
You know,
need it, right?
we do. Absolutely.
I think we learn every time, believe it or not, we do a lot of research. We invest a lot in sort of making sure the topics are on point. So
Yeah.
this is not us shooting from the hip.
Yeah, I mean,
we try to make sure we're accurate in terms of this stuff. So,
we've lived it.
we lived it.
Yeah.
We've got
Still
some
living it,
still living
you
it. Yeah.
know.
So throw a like on us, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you can get notifications.
Yes.
And most of all, in the comment section, tell us about forgiving
Yeah.
and forgetting,
Yeah.
your journey on forgiving and forgetting. Be intellectually honest if you can. Also, if you can't be sort of transparent in sort of a public forum, you can definitely reach out to us at safeinthehouse@gmail.com. Safehouse family members, you have obviously my wife's mobile number that you can text questions to her. You can also reach us on Instagram under Safe in the House, at Safe in the House. If you want to reach us,
We can be found.
we can be found.
We are not hiding.
So that's it. And
That's
until next time, we love you all
We love
very,
you
very,
guys.
very much.
We
very
appreciate you
much.
guys tuning in to our episodes. We're definitely looking forward to 2025. Not sure of everything we're going to talk about, but I think the thing that I'm definitely looking forward to is just still being able to share the heart of God for marriages and for our forever people. Like I said, whether we're single, or we're married, but just to be able to have this safe space where we can have these levels of discussions.
Yeah. All right, you all. Love you.
Love you.
And with that, we say peace.